In the extreme hot weather of Dubai, a Boeing 777 is just few feet above the runway for its final approach. The thermal updraft coming from the ground was pushing the aircraft upwards.
Long landing.
The captain pushed the toga switch and the aircraft started to climb. But suddenly,
Don't think. Don't think. Don't think.
3 August 2016. Trivandrum International Airport, Thiruvananthapuram, India. A Boeing 777 operated by Emirates was preparing for its scheduled international passenger flight to Dubai, United Arab Emirates. "282 passengers and 18 crew members were on board the flight. The captain was unnamed, aged 34, an UAE national who had been with Emirates since March 2001. He had an experience of 7,457 flight hours, including 5,123 hours on the Boeing 777. The first officer, named Jeremy Webb, aged 37, an Australian national who had been with Emirates since October 2014 and had an experience of 7,957 flight hours, with 1,292 of them on the Boeing 777. The flight crew had just rest period approximately 30 hours and the cabin crew were off duty for periods of time varying between 53 hours and 72 hours prior to operating flight 521. The aircraft involved was Boeing 777-31H. It was equipped with 2 Rolls-Royce trained 892 engines and was 13 years old, having made its first flight on 7 March 2003. It was delivered new to Emirates on 28 March 2003 and had logged more than 58,000 flight hours in 13,000 cycles before the crash. The Boeing 777 departed from Trivandrum International Airport, India for its 3-hour, 30 minutes of journey to Dubai. The aircraft takeoff weight was 257,789 kg and the calculated landing weight was 229,682 kg. The en route part of the flight was uneventful. The crew completed the approach briefings for runways 12 left and 30 left. The captain captain briefed to the co-pilot that in case of go-around, flaps 20 was to be selected and they will climb to 3,000 feet. The United Arab Emirates National Center of Meteorology and Seismology issued a moderate wind shear warning affecting all runways at Dubai Airport with validity from 11:40 to 1 p.m. The captain briefed for the possibility of wind shear. The crew communicated with Dubai ATC and confirmed that they had received automatic terminal information service. According to the captain, prior to this flight, he had experienced similar wind shear warning on ATIS at the same airport. Except ATIS, there was no additional information from ATC regarding the wind shear warning, so he did not believe that the landing would be affected. The air traffic controller vectored flight 521 for approach to runway 12 left. An Airbus A321 operated by Air India performed a go-around. At that time, the wind speed was 12.8 knots. A Boeing 777 operated by Emirates performed a go-around. At that time, the wind speed was 12.2 knots. Another Boeing 777 operated by Emirates performed a deep landing. At that time, the wind speed was 6.6 knots. The flight crew of Flight 521 were not informed by ATC of the go-arounds and deep landing. Now, Flight 521 was clear to land on runway 12 left by ATC, which gave the wind speed and directions as 11 knots from 340 degrees.
Minimums.
The captain disengaged the autopilot and continued the approach with the auto throttle engaged in accordance with the operator's policy.
200. 100. 50. 40. 30. 20. 10. 10. 10. 10.
The wind speed was now 13.5 knots from 308 degrees. Because of the reduction in the tailwind component, the airspeed started to increase, which resulted in the auto thrust retarding both thrust levers. The thermal updraft coming from the ground was pushing the aircraft upwards.
Long landing.
Thinking that the aircraft did not touch the runway, the captain pushed the left toga switch. Even the captain pushed the toga switch, the thrust levers remained at the idle position because the aircraft had already touched the runway surface. The aircraft reached at an altitude of 85 feet.
Don't think.
Beginning now, the plane started to lose height.
Don't think.
The captain applied the full thrust and increased the aircraft pitch to 9.2 degrees in an attempt to regain height, but it was too late. Crew members and passengers evacuated the aircraft using the available passenger door escape slides. 21 passengers, 1 flight crew members and 6 cabin crew members sustained minor injuries. 4 cabin crew members sustained serious injuries. Approximately 9 minutes and 40 seconds after the aircraft came to rest, the center wing tank exploded, which caused a large section of the right wing upper skin to be liberated. As the panel fell to the ground, it struck and fatally injured a firefighter. The aircraft sustained substantial structural damage as a result of the impact and its movement along the runway, and it was eventually destroyed by fire. The investigation was done by General Civil Aviation Authority of United Arab Emirates. According to the investigators, the pilots failed to realize the engines of the aircraft remained idle as they tried to take off from the failed landing attempt. The flight crew reliance on automation and lack of training in flying go-arounds from close to the runway surface significantly affected the flight crew performance in a critical flight situation, which was different to their experience during their simulated training flights. They touched down on the runway and then decided that they wanted to go around. Here they made one critical mistake. The crew failed to realize that after the airplane makes contact with the ground, the systems automatically disables the toga buttons. It is not proper to blame any individuals or organization for this crash. The crew were unaware that the aircraft had actually touched down the runway surface. Instead of manual thrust, the crew relied on the auto thrust and thought that it will advance the thrust when they will press the toga button. Completely relying in the automation actually caused this accident.